Hey, it's Margot here at My Favorite Quilt Store.
And Mary Jean, and today we're showing the final installment of the quilt that
That you finally finished the quilt, and we want to see how this all came out. So if you followed us on the other videos, we did a video of the top.
Right.
She had completed the top and she wanted to make it bigger. So we went through a lot of iterations to look for what the right inner and outer border was going to be.
Yep.
Because she wanted a certain size, and then the backing to kind of bring it all together.
Yep.
And so this is the actual final finished quilt. So you had a long arm quilter quilt it.
I did.
And she did a pantograph?
She did a pantograph. I asked her to please do something. I thought this looked very much like sea glass.
Okay.
And I asked her to do something that was sort of like ocean waves. I wanted an overall design. We talked about the last time that we showed this quilt, this quilt's very geometric, and I wanted something with a little more flow to it. So I did talk to her. The interesting thing is we auditioned several threads, and when you're doing your quilt or yourself, or you're sending it to a long armor, I would really recommend just taking the thread and throwing it out and living with it for an hour or so.
Right.
Because we started off with a gray thread and we just weren't thrilled. Then we went to like a lighter blue thread and we weren't thrilled. And we ended up with a thread that matched a little more of this.
That color right there. That's what I was going to say. It's got a nice blue color to it, which adds a little. You can actually see the movement.
You can see it,
and you can tell that you've got movement in it until you get to the outer borders, and you don't see it quite as much.
Yeah.
But you see it in the middle where you kind of needed it with that geometric feel.
Yeah.
And so on the back, I just love this. It almost reminds me of a fishnet. So then it follows along in that same theme of the quilt, and it really matches the back of the quilt, the thread that you picked, really, really well, because you can barely see much of the quilting in the back of the quilt.
Yep.
Which is fine.
The back of the quilt's more of a gray blue.
Okay.
The back of and I didn't want it to really totally blend, but I didn't want it to stick out. Lots of times the way I pick my quilting design is I want someone to say, oh, that's a really pretty quilt. I don't want them to say, oh, the quilting's beautiful.
Right.
You know, I want them to see the overall quilt,
right,
and be happy with the overall end result. So what do you think about the binding? What would you have chosen to kind of frame it?
I did. I would choose to frame it also, where you use the same, when you do this the inner border that's really small. A lot of times I do like to bring it right out here again to frame it and kind of bring it all together.
Yeah, sometimes people do the little fold over method too.
Right.
And I wasn't thrilled with this on the front of the quilt. What do you think?
No, I think it needed to be the solid again on this to kind of give it a closure, a resting point at the edge.
Yep, I was very happy with it. And last but not least, I did a nice label on the back.
Let's see your label on the back.
So I just did a very simple label, and I wrote the name of the bride and groom. This is actually a wedding quilt. The date of their wedding, where their wedding's taking place, and made by Mary Jean Murphy. That was just something very simple.
Yeah.
And I did it with on this fabric right here. And I don't know if you all have thought about this. This is something that I think a lot of quilters do, but if not, I print it off on a piece of paper, and I take my fabric and iron it onto a piece of freezer paper, and then put it on a light box and just go ahead and trace off of it. And I use, what do you use? Use a Pigma pen?
I use a Micron Pigma pen.
That's exactly what I use. Believe it or not, I used a 08.
Oh, okay. The 0.8.
I never use one that's that thick. I usually use a 02.
Yeah. Well, because usually you're embroidering over it or doing something else on top of it, so you use a finer point. But this one worked out perfect.
Yeah,
for
this
that.
one worked out good. I really wanted you to be able to see it since it's like a wedding. Their wedding.
And
day.
then did you heat set iron it after you got it all done?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was something we were going to forget to say. I'm glad you mentioned that.
After you use a Pigma pen on it, just to make sure that it's permanent, you go back and heat set it with your iron.
Right.
Yep.
So that's it. It's all done.
All right, it's all done and ready for the wedding. So the wedding isn't until December 30th. So gosh, now you've got plenty of time to forget where you're going to put it. And
actually, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it, and I'm going to give it to her as a shower gift.
Okay, I think that's perfect. And the shower is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So
it
should
coming
be,
up.
Easy peasy.
So I hope you enjoyed the journey of this quilt.
Thanks for sharing this with us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Hey, everybody, have a happy day sewing. See you later.